Hi again, this is Paulette. Yes, it was cut off. And so we're going to see how long this one lasts for. I'm uploading the first half of We Are Responsible for Our Own Salvation. So I'm going to go into basically some points that God wanted me to speak on about being responsible. And these are just basically examples. There are examples that I experienced. There are probably many more examples out there that you have experienced, but I'm going to go by my experience and hopefully you can understand where I'm going at. So, like I said, it's very important that we read our Bible because if we're not careful with reading our Bible, we can be misled. So why I say it's responsible because, the Bible says, like, we are to go by what is in the Bible. And so I'm going to give an example. And one example would be, say, for example, fasting. And now, fasting is mentioned in the Bible by Jesus. Jesus mentioned the religious leaders of that time, they tried to trap Jesus. Or they basically asked him, you know, like we fast all the time, yet your disciples don't fast, and why not? And basically, Jesus explained to them that they're not going to fast while the groom is with them. When the groom is gone, then they will fast. So it is clear, like Jesus is not saying this for entertainment. Like this is not a statement in the Bible that is just being said for entertainment. This is just not a, so, if you want to fast, you fast. Like if Jesus said, after I leave, then they will fast. And the religious leaders at that time also fast. King David fast, Jehoshaphat fast, Daniel fast, Esther fast, Hezekiah fast. Like there are a number of kings and leaders who fasted in the Bible. So this is not just like just something that happened before Christ came. This was something, and I mean, like even after that, they fasted. So, I mean, this is a requirement that we are to do. Jesus said it out of his own mouth. It doesn't get any plainer than that. So, if that is something that you do, and then if you have somebody in a senior position saying that this is not a requirement. Like, and if this is something that is being said, quite a few times, then you have to question, why is this being said? Because it is clear in the Bible that we are to fast. So it is one thing, and I just want to be clear here. I want to be very clear here. None of us are perfect. Pastors are not perfect. People who, speak on these platforms like myself, none of us are perfect. So we're not going to get it right 100% of the time. None of us are. And that's okay. Like like the churches that I've gone to, and I mentioned a couple, for most of what they said, I've agreed with. There are some things that I didn't, agree with. And, they believe in one party and I believe in one political party, that's their opinion. And, we're allowed to have opinions and we're allowed to be different in those opinions. And even with the Bible, sometimes there's different interpretations. You take the book of Revelations and you're going to have like a million different points of views on Revelations, but that doesn't mean that because of those views that church or that person or that pastor is not called to what they're doing and is not excellent at what they're doing. You may not agree or see it the way that they see it, but that is no reason to be offended by their presentation or how they deliver the message. So I want to make that clear. I also wanted to make it clear that just because you do not agree with a pastor on certain things, that's no reason to pick up and leave a church. These reasons are not reasons to leave a church or to get mad at the pastor or be offended by them. These are not the reasons, because we're all human, and we all have different ways sometimes in which we see things. So if God plants you in a church and you have a different perception of what a pastor may be speaking about on a particular subject, that's okay. You take it back to God, pray to God about it, and speak to Him and see what He has to say. But there's no reason to get mad at the person who's delivering the message, the messenger. There's no reason why we should do that. And there's no reason, if God tells you He wants you planted in that church, that you are to abandon that church just because you didn't agree with the pastor or whoever was speaking on a particular thing. So I want to make that very, very clear. And like I said, the book of Revelations is a very good example, because you're going to have like a million interpretations on, what it means. But that doesn't mean that just because you see it one way and someone else sees it the other way, that person is wrong and that you're right. So I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. And you should not uproot yourself from a church because you just don't see something a certain way. I'm not talking about that either. But when you're seeing a series of things that are in the Bible, and don't get me wrong, even if you're seeing some things that are in the Bible, and the speaker is saying one thing, and you see that that's completely wrong, but still you're being blessed by that church. If you're being blessed by that church, and what they're saying is different, but you're being blessed by that church, and God is telling you to stay in that church, you stay in that church. But what I am saying, if it becomes a point where you feel like you're being violated in any way, and I'm not talking about physically violated, that is one, but I'm not talking about that. But when you feel that your rights are being violated, and you're, like certain things where you're feeling a certain pressure or a certain discomfort, then you need to take that to God. And and if you have management, like if you have a senior level of management saying that, your views aren't our views, so maybe you should leave, trust me, that is God using that person to tell you to pick yourself up and leave. So I just want to be clear on all of that. So when I talk about this, about us being responsible for our salvation, it is important that we read our Bible and find out for ourselves, and back up the truth to what is being presented to us, so that at the end of the day, because when we die, we can't say it was the senior pastor who told us to do it this way, or to go that way, or to say this. At the end of the day, when we meet God, and when God says, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that, we have no one to blame but ourselves. So this is why it's important that we take that kind of responsibility now. And like I said, they are humans as well. So I just want to make that clear. So, I digressed in what I was saying about and what I was saying about, and I forgot what I was saying about. I digress. I went right off here, but I was basically talking about. Oh my gosh! I was basically talking about. I can't believe I forgot, but I just digressed. And So anyway, I'm just going to go back into it. So So as I was saying about. I can't believe I forgot this. This is like a senior moment here, because I was going on a tangent kind of thing about a few things. But when I was talking about, I'm gonna have to. I can't believe I actually forgot this. And see, I don't have any glasses, and so. Senior moment here. Okay. Ah. I can't believe I